Hey everybody, welcome to Glitchy Pancakes, real talk about the world of fandom. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Rob.
Today we're going to focus on a really important aspect of the craft of writing, both in genre fiction and also just in general. How authors can write characters who are different from themselves, sensitively yet still convincingly. Whether those differences are in race, ethnicity, age, gender, other identities. And to discuss this with us, we have two fantastic guests who literally wrote the book on this topic and now teach workshops alongside a group of other amazing teachers. First, co-founder of Writing the Other, author of novels such as Everfair and dozens of short stories, editor of collections and anthologies like New Sons, original speculative fiction by people of color, which came out recently and I'm a huge fan of. Founding member of the Carl Brandon Society, former board member of the Clarion West Writing Workshop, Nisi Shawl. Welcome to Glitchy Pancakes.
I'm so happy to be here.
Great. We also have with us the co-founder and developer of Writing the Other, an author of stories you can find in places such as Asimov's, writer of the monthly Market Maven newsletter about the writing market,
So
also
that
the
five
market
times
reporter.
fast.
Was it? Yeah. Market Maven Market Newsletter. Got it. And the market reporter for the SIFWA Bulletin, Cynthia Ward. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. That's actually outdated information.
Is it? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
correct me. What did I miss there?
Okay, yeah, I retired from the Market Maven and the SIFWA Market Bulletin, and I have had some short novels out from Aqueduct Press. The first one is The Adventure of the Incognita Countess, and there's a couple more released in that series.
Adventure of the Incognita Countess. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us about that and making sure we got the right info. So scratch the Market Maven, scratch the
Correct.
Market Reporter, and go buy Cynthia's book.
And we will definitely put those in the show notes later for you guys to check out as well.
Yes, everybody listening,
you.
the works that we bring up will be in the show notes, so you can just click on them and go get them. But yeah, we really appreciate y'all being on the show. Thank you very much for it. How are you?
Thank you.
How are you holding up where you are?
Well, here where I am, I'm basically just working, writing a sequel to Everfair and looking out my window and seeing people go by on bicycles and people coming to bring me groceries. And it's not much different. I've been in isolation before as a writer, and I'm in isolation now.
Right. How about you, Cynthia? How's it going where you are?
It's fairly similar. I mean, I go out less, but I've been working at home for years, writing, being a property manager, selling books, doing a bunch of different things, and this weekend I've been preparing for this and working on a short story for a Kickstarter anthology that's due tomorrow. So I've definitely been staying home a lot lately.
Oh
Between
wow!
that and COVID.
I bet. Well, we hear similar stuff from a lot of people who write for a living specifically and or do a lot of writing. Is that it's not a lot changes. It's like Nisi said, you're spent a lot of time in isolation, living the life of the mind, and then you quarantine yourself and find yourself right back where you were.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're getting time to work. That's great, at least.
Well, yeah, and actually there is something that has come up that since the quarantine, lockdown, whatever we're calling it, shelter in place started, and that is twice a day I'm in 2-hour writing sessions they're virtual writing sessions, with people as far away as Oakland and New Jersey, and we get together, we talk for a few minutes about writing and, talk about what we want to do and technical problems we're facing. And then we mute and we write and then we check back in like 45 minutes or so. It's weirdly helpful.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you're finding the sort of like workshop or the groups like that, being able to do that online is actually is being a benefit rather than like you're not seeing a detriment from not being able to get together in person for workshops. This is a good thing.
Well, it's probably enough socializing for the introvert that I really am.
Right. Well, and it seems like it make it more convenient too. Like it gives you more options. Like you said, you can,
Right.
if you're on the West Coast, you can get on the phone with somebody from Jersey and somebody from the Midwest and someone from another country, and really exchange ideas in a way that maybe you don't get to if you're just going to local workshops. So that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. Finding the silver lining.
Right.
Yep.
So I had a question for Nisi, if you don't mind me asking. It's can you tell us about the inspiration for writing The Other, how you and Cynthia got together to develop it, and what you see its purpose is within genre fiction?
Well, yeah, Cynthia and I were in the same, well, not in the same room. We were outside in the same courtyard when
Right.
inspiration struck. It was we were attending the 1992 edition of the Clarion West Writers Workshop, and it was a classmate who inspired me, and then I asked Cynthia to join me in doing this. The classmate, well, the whole story is the whole write-up is on the Aqueduct Press website. Aqueduct Press is who published Writing the Other. But basically, this classmate said that she would never write the other, and I thought that sounded rather cowardly, basically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So wrote an essay about it, invited Cindy to teach with me because I knew she had some great ideas about how the mind works, how writing works, and how people represent each other and themselves, and took off from there.
Right.
That's great. I didn't realize that you were both at that same workshop. I know actually knew the story that you'd heard someone say that they were afraid to write someone who was different from themselves because they were too scared to get it wrong, like you said, and that was that it seemed like you said, cowardly. It struck me as kind of like a lazy way to do it too, and almost a little whiny, honestly, like saying, how am I,
Right.
It's like someone complaining that, well, I can't write, you can't make me do this work because I might get it wrong.
Right.
So there's no point. It just, I don't know, sounds a little whiny to me. So I think it's really good that the two of you put your heads together and decided to actually create a resource for people to show them it can be done and also show them how to do it in a really practical way.
Right.
Well, to be fair, I would say, I mean, and Cindy, you may agree with me, the person who said this was reacting to someone doing a shallow and unrealistic depiction of their ethnic group. Am I right?
I think so, and she does belong to, I would say, at least a couple groups that are also culturally at a disadvantage. So I am sure she has been multiple times on the receiving end of some sometimes pretty awful mischaracterizations. I was present too. We actually had a fire alarm, so we all trooped out of the dorm, and there was a patio area with lounge chairs. So we were the three of us sitting in a row with manuscripts next to each other having a conversation.
Yep.
Right. I have a follow-up question. So, how let's say within the first 2 months of you guys doing this, how challenging was it did you instantly feel comfortable with doing it, or was there a few hiccups there in creating this particular type of need?
Do you remember, Cindy? Actually, we had a priest. I practice a West African tradition. We had a priest do like a blessing on us. Isn't that right? Before we did our first presentation.
And we received materials and instructions on what to do as a ritual to prepare our minds. That was very useful.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think we've ever actually mentioned that before.
That's pretty cool.
I don't think we have either, and my memory is very hazy now because that would be like 15 years ago or more.
Yeah, I remember
Well,
coconuts were involved.
Coconuts. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
And there was the red powder for invoking our higher minds and thoughts.
Oh,
I might need to
right.
call
Yep.
this priest. I might need to call this priest. I think I want that too, as well. I want my higher mind to be involved with everything that I do. That's pretty. That's
She's
pretty
a
cool.
wise woman.
I also think coconuts should be involved in every calming ritual.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Just personally.
Absolutely. Right.
But that's cool that you took that approach to it. Like that's a very thoughtful approach. And it strikes me that maybe it was. I don't know how much of it was related to. It sounds like it was very much to get yourselves in the right headspace. Which, if I heard you right, you said this was around 1992 or 90. It would have been soon after that you were making your
Say
first
about
presentation,
9.
right?
I think we started working on the workshop in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Nisi had written some articles before, like Transracial Writing for the Sincere and appropriate cultural appropriation.
Mhm.
But around 2000 or a little later, she started talking to me about doing a workshop.
Yeah, the workshop came much later after the article. So yeah, it was still about 20 years ago, though. Hey.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. Is that with it being that long ago, there have been the subject matter that you two delve so deeply into is getting a lot more spotlight lately, as it should. But I'm thinking back, 20 years ago, it must have been a little bit daunting to prepare yourselves to get in front of people who this was going to be new information to a lot of folks and new conversations that 20 years ago may not seem that long to some folks, but in terms of how the culture of fandom and the culture of writing and things like that can change, it's quite a while. So I think that was pretty courageous to do, and it sounds like a good idea to have spoken with the priest and gotten yourselves in prepared for not knowing what you would face. So that begs the question: how was it received when you first started bringing this out?
I think it was. All my memories are positive. People being happy and excited to have this material, and also there was just this real atmosphere of being able to do something and given the tools to do something. It wasn't like permission; it was like modeling. What do you think, Cindy?
Yeah, people seemed positive. They were glad that there was something out there. People came to the workshops. I mean, when you're setting up basically a new class, you wonder, are any people going to show up? But there's always been interest. People have always shown up, in my experience.
Well, I think one of the things that we had going for us is that this was not required anywhere. So anybody that came to the classes, anyone that attended was they had sort of pre-sorted and they were definitely supporters of this idea. They weren't there because they had to be. They were there because they wanted to be.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. They'd gone through sort of a self-selection process before ever showing up to begin with.
Right.
That's a good point. And I'm glad that people did show up. That shows that there was an interest back then. There definitely still is. I'd say it's significantly grown. Writing the other is, from conversations I've had with folks, is pretty much considered the it's the key text if you want to learn about this. And
Thank you.
You also have a really amazing group of people that teach classes on a variety of subjects closely related to the main topic, or like your classic seminar on writing the other, which is kind of the center of it. But you have a lot of other workshops now. I noticed you've got, your lineup is fantastic. I saw Stephen Barnes on there, Kay Tippis Bradford, obviously, does a lot of work with you. Max Gladstone, Debbie Reese, Jamie Go, Kate Elliott. It's quite a list. Would you like to tell us about some of the workshops that they teach, like what writers can learn from them that's related to your main topic?
Well, most of this actually has been arranged by Tempest, by Kay Tempest
Arranged by
Bradford.
Tempest, you said?
Yes, yes, yeah. She does the reaching out. Sometimes we'll get together and sort of brainstorm about who would be good to teach a class, for instance, which we have not actually gotten set up yet, about writing your background that you're related to genetically, but not culturally. Like, say, someone who was born in the U.S. but is of Japanese background.
Right.
There are special problems with representing a culture that is in some ways your own and in some ways not. So it's writing the sort of other.
Right.
Yeah, and we have we'll talk about things like who can we get that can talk about writing romance? Who can we get to talk about writing the particulars of writing in another language? All that kind of stuff. We just basically think about it and then talk about it, and then Tempest is basically the one that reaches out, though.
Okay, so you kind of start with the topic, whatever it is that you want to, that's maybe a subset of this, that an area that needs to be touched on, like writing diverse worlds. I saw writing inclusive worlds. I've seen things like that. So you just kind of start with the idea, and then you match up, or Tempest helps you match up who's out there who could teach this well, who's got the experience and does it well.
Right, and I mean, sometimes it's us, like Cindy and I did a one on atheism, because Cindy's an atheist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, religion and atheism.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that you kind of led into my next question, which was actually about different religious beliefs. So I'm gonna move past that one. The one I really wanted to ask is like, I'm a Black man, and I'm a bit of a writer, very amateur, and I found that I do have difficulty writing women, and specifically Black women, because I know so many different Black women that are just so different from each other, right? So at what point can I just consider that person a person without writing them as anything else but themselves? I don't want to seem sensitive or insensitive by taking away culture from that person, or is it just up to me?
Well, the thing is, this is someone is supposed to be making me a T-shirt, actually, that says this. This is my favorite saying: difference is not monolithic.
Right.
So when you say you have difficulty writing Black women, well, that's because Black women are not monolithic, right?
Exactly.
So, I don't know about saying just a person, but, the difference between me and my 19-year-old niece, Aaliyah, hello, that's a huge difference there.
Right.
Very different. And then with my 70-year-old Aunt Cookie, another difference. And this is all in one family, all from the Midwest of the U.S. So, and it's we are all contemporary. So then all contemporary, and you talk about, people in different times, in different locations, friends I have who are from a Caribbean background. I mean, you can't just write a Black woman. Sorry.
Right. No, I appreciate that. It was something that I was concerned, because I didn't want to take culture away from a character, but I didn't want to make them a trope, or just fall into that bad habit that most people do when they don't fully understand. I guess I just have to fully understand my character, where they're from, their time period, so on and so forth, so I can get an understanding of that person. And then if I don't know, just ask, right? Right, it's the best thing to do. Is just ask. If I want to write,
or take a workshop,
right? Or take a workshop. But I have two guests that I can ask personally and sign up for a workshop. That's a great idea.
Right.
Do you have a specific story for her in mind already?
I do. Yes.
That will help you to find down to what you want and need, because if you know that much, that will start to tell you what doesn't apply.
Right.
So if you've already got, if you have an idea for where this story is going for this particular character, and not just an idea of who you want this character to be, but where they're going, you think that is that what you mean? Is that would help inform your
Yeah,
decisions?
if you're talking about somebody who's, uh, say, a free woman of color in Boston in 1776 versus someone who's like a tech goddess college student at Columbia University in modern New York versus someone who's uh, of Cameroonian background
Right.
and in an international lunar base and 200 years from now. Do you see what I mean?
Right. I do.
You can
Yes.
start focusing on those things to take you closer to your goal.
And further from the stereotypes that, like, I know
Yes.
you were talking about, you didn't want to write a stereotype.
Right. Right. I don't. Absolutely not.
Right.
I don't think any of us want to.
Exactly.
No, and that makes me think of something that a lot of this conversation that we hear, if you're just on Twitter or in various groups or seeing writers talk about this, occasionally you'll see or hear people say stuff like what you said. You heard at Clarion that someone's afraid to write characters different from themselves for fear of getting it wrong. And you hear people complain sometimes that they don't know what to do, like, saying things like, well, I'm this, so does every character in my novel have to be like this? And there's also a lot of discussion about who is, like, I'm putting this in quotes, allowed to tell the stories about particular people of particular identities.
Yes.
A lot of that discussion, frankly, to me seems pretty disingenuous and kind of a lazy way to approach it. Like the way that people talk about it, saying like that they complain about not being able to tell certain stories.
Right.
I wonder, though, it seems like it also may be a little bit grounded in actual confusion that some people have. Are you able to tell us anything about what you think as far as where it's appropriate to draw those lines as far as who tells what stories about whom? Like when is it appropriate to do so?
I think about this a lot, and it's something that gets brought up a lot in classes where I'm teaching online or in person. So first of all, I really loathe it when people make it all about themselves.
Right.
Right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, poor me, I can't write about it because I might get, my hand smacked with the ruler of righteousness or whatever. And first of all, it's not all about the person that's doing the writing. It's it is a fact that you can actually harm people with stories. So the point is not whether you're allowed to do something, but whether you are going to do something well enough that you won't be causing someone to be lynched, basically, or beaten to death with a baseball bat or something, because you've validated a stereotype of some sort. So there really are actual life and death consequences to the stories that we tell.
That seems like an extremely important point, actually, because that's one that I don't hear come up a lot in that conversation, because it seems like people focus on just, like you said, what's appropriate, or what are they going to get in trouble for? Will they get canceled for writing the wrong? That's what they're focusing on in a lot of this conversation. But what you're saying, and I tend to agree, is that there's a lot more at stake than simply whether your book will be well received. There are consequences, real world consequences, life and death, actual violence, and I'm sure more subtle consequences as well. The continuation of disenfranchisement and white supremacy and structures of power that are inequitable to a lot of people, but also real world physical danger. So I think you're absolutely right about that. I wanted to just reemphasize that point for everyone listening, that when you hear that conversation, remember, we're not just talking about whether you'll be, quote, canceled. We're talking about, is it safe to tell the story you're trying to tell?
And then the other thing is, it is actually something that should be taken on a case-by-case basis, I think. You
Agreed.
need to ask yourself so many questions, right, Cindy? I mean, you need to ask,
Yes.
who else has been telling this story? Is my viewpoint valid, or is it something that I've just, seen on TV?
Right.
Is this character someone that I know? Well, okay, so, but do you really know them? All of this stuff. Who was it? Hiromi Goto came up with a list of questions to ask yourself when you're trying to tell a story that involves people of a different race or physical ability. Questions to ask yourself as you get started. It's a process of self-examination, and it is not something to be taken lightly. It's work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, and that's work that people need to do. It seems like a lot of the when we hear the sort of complaining tone come into these conversations, what I'm hearing most of the time is I don't want to do the work. But that's one of the great things I think about writing the other and the workshops that you've created is that I mean the book itself, if I'm not mistaken, was intentionally is the subtitle not like a practical approach? Like this is
Yes.
right. So that was you're trying to tell people like, look, do this work. Here's why you need to do this work, and here's how to do it. Here's like there's kind of no excuse at this point. I mean, everything is all of the information is there. All the teaching is there. There's no reason to. And I'm not saying that people aren't still going to make mistakes, but that it's difficult not to make mistakes, but you kind of have no excuse for not attempting to do the work. Right.
Yeah.
Just because I've been co-writer of this book doesn't mean I haven't made some bad mistakes.
Well, could you talk a little bit about how you think is a healthy way for people who are trying and want to get this stuff right, how they should deal with it when they do make mistakes, how they should process that?
Oh, there's a whole class about that too.
That's great.
But basically, it's shut up and listen.
Right.
Because
learn from your mistakes.
Yes, and the way that you can most easily do that is to pay attention to people who say this doesn't work the way you think it does, and here's how it does work. But there's whole classes really that we teach on especially with people ganging up on each other on the internet. There's just give yourself a little cooling off period, and pay attention to what people are saying, and respond as slowly as you can.
And as professionally as you can.
Well, that would be nice too. I'm thinking of actually. There was someone who's his name's Ben Winter. He wrote a book about an alternate world in which the South did not lose the Civil War. This has been done and done and done. Right. Some interviewer was talking with him, wrote it up in the New York Times, and the headline that was given was, for the first time, science fiction engages slavery.
For the first time?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Wow.
And this was not, it's Ben H. Winters. This was not his idea. I don't even know if it was the interviewer's idea. It was somebody that was in charge of writing headlines. But wow, yes. The blowback on that, because let's see, there was this book in 1977 called Kindred.
May have heard of it.
Yeah, and in fact, Ben is a big Octavia Butler fan, but he was catching hell for that.
Wow.
it's the kind of thing where you can't like marshal your troops, because you just make it worse. The more you push back, the more disturbance there is. I was able to come in and say, hi, didn't he say something about Octavia Butler in this instance here, over here? Didn't
Right.
I gave them the receipts, and I was not part of his crew, so I could get away with writing in there. But at least he was doing the right thing by not immediately getting defensive.
Yeah, that's true, because it does seem like that's something that people react that way sometimes when it's pointed out to them that, hey, this is offensive or dangerous to people. That the immediate reaction is to say, no, it's not, because that's not how I meant it.
Right.
And that's it's confusing. That's confusing, intent with impact, and
Right.
Impact is the more important of the two most of the time. I believe.
Well, one element here is that anything interpreted as an attack by the primitive part of our brain is viewed as a physical attack. So it's very hard to not get defensive when something is brought up, even very politely or calmly, because the reptile mind has no idea there's a difference between this has unfortunate consequences for my race and someone pointing a gun at you.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's very hard to engage, and that's why when Nisi was talking about being calm and maybe backing off, or one thing that I had thought of, sometimes I've thought about telling people, it probably sounds kind of flip, so y'all can let me know, but it's like, if things are blowing up on you, be gracious. If you can't be grateful, gracious, be grateful. If you can't be grateful, be quiet.
Right.
Yeah, and being
because
grateful.
then you can think.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not gracious to the criticism, at least thank people for it. If you can't do that, and I can't always do that, I have behaved badly in these situations, the thing to do is to be quiet. Do not go on NPR like the author of American Dirt and make it worse.
I wondered if that was going to come up.
Yeah, that's a recent example where I heard her. So, and I went back a few times and listened again to make sure, right, that I'm getting it right, that I'm not so upset that I'm mishearing it.
Right. That seems like good advice in general, because since if your brain is going to interpret the attacks, even if they're completely well founded, even if you did something wrong, that your immediate reaction is going to be to get defensive. That makes perfect sense to just you're going to experience that feeling, but keep your mouth shut until it passes, and you're able to assess it critically and take a look at whether maybe there's some merit to the thing that you've been confronted with.
And Cindy, God, that what you said about being grateful, that is just so on point, because anybody who has been in a minority, it costs you energy to actually speak up and say, this is wrong. You messed up here. Otherwise, if no one thinks that it's worth mentioning to you, then you're really in bad shape.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Oh no, I had a slight change of direction. So you go ahead.
You go ahead. You good. All
right.
Yeah,
it's still kind of staying on topic, but I was curious about whether because good representation is really important in any art form, but we focus a lot on this podcast where we focus on science fiction, fantasy, horror, that type of content, genre literature in particular. Are there ways that you've seen that writing the other requires a different approach, or maybe presents different challenges or opportunities for writers of genre fiction in particular? Let me know if that question didn't make sense.
Well, no, I think it should be easier for us, right, Cindy?
Because we can write about other times and stuff like that, and imaginary places.
other cultures, so we're already doing it. So
Yeah.
um, I think that it's a challenge to realize that we can and should expand that imagination and that research that we're doing to include real life others.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's always that's a crazy thing to hear sometimes when people are fans of science fiction and fantasy in particular will totally willing to accept a far-flung future scenario where we live in different galaxies and just the most amazing technology that's never thoroughly explained, and just they'll suspend their disbelief for anything until they start seeing characters that they can't immediately and automatically identify with because they're very similar to themselves. Like
Right.
that's what you can't imagine. Your
I
imagination can
know.
go all
Like,
these other places, but you can't imagine a black lead character in this
Right.
role.
I'm closer to Luke Skywalker than Luke Skywalker is closer to Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
fought that fight. I fought as a black man from the South. I fought the fight, and I'm a nurse too, so I fought the double fight here lately. So I'm closer to Luke Skywalker than any of the dudes that want to who look like Luke Skywalker. It's insane that they can't see that it is it's okay to not know who you're writing and then to go get informed about the people that you're writing.
I do want to say that when we mentioned American Dirt recently, when that topic came up, I was interviewed about it for some radio stations, and I kept trying to make the point that this is something. This controversy is something that is very familiar to science fiction
Mm-hmm.
audiences, actually, to science fiction production as well. It's something that
Mhm.
we have been through a few times. Well, maybe thanks to what Cindy and I have done,
Right.
but it's not entirely new to us, and people who were outside the genre were acting as if it was like unprecedented. And here we are, we've
Yeah.
been plugging away at this for over a decade, folks. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I want to give credit to the field for
Right.
exploring this.
Yes.
Yeah, that is something that I feel like there hopefully is more of a receptive audience in writers of genre fiction. I'm just particularly biased toward I love it. I'm a lifelong fan of speculative fiction, and I want to see this community be good. And I think as people who write so imaginatively and are able to think so creatively with such broad imagination, I want to see this group of writers be at the forefront of really approaching this issue and making it making it making it the standard really
Mm-hmm.
to put in the work to learn from people like you two and
Sure.
the awesome teachers that you have with writing the other. That's that's a hope that I personally have for speculative fiction, because that's what I feel like. Maybe it's a little idealistic, but I feel like that's what we ought to be as a group.
It's
Sounds
definitely
Well, I
reasonable
was
to
telling
me.
these people, I was telling them we already were. So, oops.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the work that you guys are doing, I have two children, two small children. The work that you guys are doing is allowing them to see, you know, characters that look like them and that represent however they're going to represent in the future. So I want to personally thank you both for the type of work that you do. It's hard. I know it's draining. It's got to be. It's. I can imagine the classes that you've had to have with people who just aren't getting it, and then having to work on those people constantly until they finally get that they just need to be quiet and listen. And I know that's simple, but I really appreciate that type of work that you guys are doing. And I can't imagine the energy that you have to put into it, but I'm thankful for it, and my children and their children will be thankful for it too, because this is the work that needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're about at time. So, Nisi Shawl, Cynthia Ward, thank you both so much for coming
So
on Glitchy
much.
Pancakes to talk
Really
about this with
appreciate it.
us. Yes, even though we've been following you for a while, which the work that you're doing, I feel like we have a better understanding of it now, and really hope that people will go and check out the get the book, look up the workshops, especially if you're a writer. This is the place to learn. You got to go
Right.
and find them. Where I guess we can do it one at a time. Nisi, where can people find you online?
So I have a website, nisishawl.com. I'm on Twitter at Nisi Shawl, and on Facebook. And that's pretty much the extent of it. Nisi Shawl on Facebook, and I don't mess with Instagram or any of the other
I don't either.
young folks stuff.
Nah.
Yeah, and my name is very, very Googleable.
Yes.
If you type in Nisi Shawl, you will find short stories that I got paid for, but you can read for free. A couple of podcasts that LeVar Burton did, reading stories of mine.
Love
Ooh.
LeVar.
Yeah.
One of my heroes.
Yes, and he continues to work that hero thing every day.
Yes.
And of course,
fantastic.
there's our writingtheother.com website, where you can find out about the classes taught by people like Andrea Hairston, Max Gladstone, of course, me and Cindy, Tempest. So yeah, I think those are a few of the places, and like I say, Googleable. Just
Google
look me up.
Yes, you're the only one that comes up. If you Google Nisi Shawl, you will find her. Cynthia, where are there any social media spots or websites or anything like that you want to point people toward?
Well, I do have a website, cynthiaward.com. My Twitter is at Cynthia_Ward, all lowercase, and then I have a author page, it's like Cynthia Ward Author on Facebook, and then I have a personal account there, and I'm not really all over social media either.
Well, you're probably mentally healthier than the rest of us as a result.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Stay away from it. Don't start it. It's a bad habit. Don't start
The
it.
less I do of it, the more mentally healthy I have discovered myself to be. So you were onto something.
I think so. Well, thank you both very much. We're gonna put all of your we're gonna put your info and the links to Writing the Other, the book, and the website and everything will be in the show notes. Everyone go and check them out.
Please.
Thank you both very much for your time, your perspective. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say this was so much fun. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it was great. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a great time. We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on.
That sounds good.
Right.
All right, we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was that was a great conversation. I'm so happy they came on. That was Nisi Shawl and Cynthia Ward, of course. Like we said, everybody, it'll be all the info will be in the show notes. But that was fantastic. Go check out their stuff.
I learned so much and I'm inspired. I have a lot of ideas in my head right now, and
just knowing that resource is out there, right?
Right.
Like, whatever you want to write.
Right, I need to talk to my wife about budget so I can maybe either get one of these classes so I can learn some stuff myself.
Yeah, I mean, I figure for writers, it's got to be great to know, like, if you have any of those concerns about, like, am I going to do this right, or do I need to be afraid to do it? Like, there are plenty of resources. Like, I mean, you can find that out. You can write your story.
Right. I mean, one of the. I mean, it should be a trial by fire. You should get uncomfortable, and you should really dig in and find out how to write someone who isn't a reflection in the mirror. You know, someone that you can create an entire world, and you can create universes, you can create ships, technologies, but it's difficult to create a Asian woman who just left an internment camp, or it's difficult to create those experiences when you have not had those experiences. And even doing the research, I'm a black man. I can't write that, so I need to find out. the proper steps to take to get into the right mind frame to even start writing that. You know?
Yeah, and that's their whole thing is giving a practical approach. It's like it's
Right.
not just saying it's not just like somewhere in the ether these conceptual frameworks for
Right.
thinking more sensitively. No, it's like here's how you write this stuff. This is
Right.
like practical
This is
steps
the tool to do
So-
that. And they
that's
came
awesome.
up with this amazing. If
Yes.
you have any questions for us, you can reach us at cakespod@gmail.com. And Jesse, where are you at online? Where's your presence online?
Well, I am not as smart as Cynthia Ward, so I'm actually on social media a pretty
Right,
good
me
bit.
either.
You can,
Right.
I'm on Twitter at Jesse_A_Adams. And yeah, and then of course at Glitchy Pancakes on Twitter too, if you want to look for both of us. Where are you on Twitter, Rob?
I am at EI Blackout. That is IAIBLACKOUT on Twitter. I have a Facebook page too, but it's, or you can just catch me on Glitchy Pancakes. I'll answer some questions too as myself, one of the flapjacks, and he'll answer it as, I'll just consider myself flapjack and he'll consider himself as a silver dollar or whatever pancake name that he would like to take. He could big stacks or small, whatever he wants to. We're gonna figure it out.
We're gonna figure that out.
I'll be Pat of butter. I'll be Pat of butter, and he can be maple syrup. There it is.
Butter Pat. All right, yeah, we're gonna change this from week to week too. But yeah, you can stream the episodes on glitchypancakes.com if you want to stream straight from the site. Also,
Yes.
find us on whatever podcast app. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Castbox. We did get the thing worked out with Apple, we believe, so we'll be up on Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen within a few days. So check us out.
And we got approved for iHeartRadio just recently as well, so you can catch us on iHeartRadio as well.
True. Thank you for remembering that. And yep, that's where to find us. Thanks for listening, everybody, and joining us for
Appreciate
another
it so
episode.
much.
We really appreciate it.
That's right.
Yeah, so join us next time, and thank you all for your support. Much
We
appreciated.
hope you guys are full. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.